Ryder Cup preview is presented by TaylorMade. The all-new P790 irons from TaylorMade, true beauty lies within. It's just about time to head over to Rome, who will serve as host for the first time in the almost 100 years of the Ryder Cup. The teams are set, and by now you know just how bad the U.S. has been when it comes to playing in Europe. 1993, the last time the U.S. won a Ryder Cup on European soil. The talent is there, though, even when it comes to someone like Justin Thomas, who struggled this year and had to make the team as a captain's pick.
Zach and I had discussions, whenever it was before the picks, and that was kind of what I told him is I'm like, look, obviously, I of course I want to be on the team. Yeah, I think that I can compete and I can go out there and I can do great for the team. But at the end of the day, if you guys and the guys, those 6 guys in that room, don't think that I'm what's best for the team, then I don't deserve to go. So that's been my thought the whole time, and I'm very glad that they did and do have faith in me. And now that I'm here, all of us hold the same weight as the other one. We're all one, and our job just to go out there and try to win points.
A culture of winning within a team of, a decent number of the same guys is always a good thing. I think people's form, golf courses, who you're playing, how good the guys are in that particular match across from you, that can always, maybe throw out the sample size a little bit. But I think, no doubt, it can be something that, you try and draw on. Having said that, there's a lot of differences as well to 2 years ago. So I don't think it'll be an issue on having too much confidence off of it. I think guys are very aware we've been made very aware of how long it's been, and I would say, almost half the team over half the team wasn't born yet the last time we won over here, and I think that's been made very clear to us over the last few months, and it's not something we really care about, to be honest. Most of the guys weren't on any of those losing away teams. I was on 2 of them, but I felt like I played good golf, and all you can try and do is have a winning record, and if everyone on your team does, you dominate the other team. So in part, as a team, it can be a really nice kind of culture thing within the locker room, but individually, there's a lot of freshness to this event within our squad.
So you heard Jordan Spieth there kind of talking about the American history when playing over on European soil. And it's one thing for us to tell you about it. It's another thing to see on graphic form what it looks like. A whole lot of L's. That one dub coming back in 1993, the lone win for the Americans over on European soil. So it's been 30 years, but they, for their part, are sounding confident. They believe they will be the team to end the streak and bring the trophy back to America. If I was building a team, Michael Breed and Greg Ducharme, they would be my first and second pick without a doubt. Let's get right into this and get ready for the Ryder Cup. Of course, Team USA seeking their first international Ryder Cup win on European soil since 1993. I want to start with you, Michael. Are we making too big of a deal about this?
I don't think so. I think that, losses hurt. And when you're dealing with some of the most elite players in the game of golf, particularly on the U.S. side, Greg, losing is losing. I think the advantage that the U.S. has is the President's Cup. You look at 4 rookies on this team, but they're not really 4 rookies. They've got a lot of experience. They have tremendous belief in what they're doing, and their skill set is elite. You've got 12 players on the U.S. side that are inside the top 30 in the world. On the European side, it's not that case. And I think if there's a time for them to stop the drought, it's right now. Go get it done.
Yeah, well, this is part of the reason why we're not making too big of a deal of this, because it seems like every single Ryder Cup that we get into, this is exactly the situation. The U.S. looks stronger on paper. They have the advantage of the President's Cup as well, and we still find a way to lose. So, no, we're not making too big a deal of it. Although I am with you. I think this U.S. team looks really strong. You heard Jordan Spieth call them fresh. I think that could be a really important element going into Rome.
No doubt about it.
You guys mentioned Rome, and it's one thing I feel to kind of talk about the streak. It's another thing to then actually step out there onto the course and have to actually then execute. The host site, Marco Simone Golf Country Club, has a lot of elevation challenges. How do you think this course will play out, Michael?
Well, I think this golf course is going to force the captains to make some decisions. We've already seen Luke Donald say that he's going to start with foursome play, which is a fascinating thing, Greg, because normally the Europeans, when they have control over it, when it's played over there in Europe, they start with 4-ball play, but not this time. And I think one of the reasons why they've made that decision is because how difficult this golf course is to walk. And they're trying to protect themselves to say, you know what, if we want to sit somebody, we want to sit somebody Saturday afternoon. That would be 4-ball play. And the pressure would be a little less intense for a group that doesn't have the depth that the U.S. side has.
Yeah, and this is the thing that the Europeans have leaned on throughout. Their success in Europe is their top players. Their top players are good enough to compete with the United States. And when you're on a property like this, a venue like this, where the walk is difficult, that hurts your star players who are expected and have in the past gone at least 4 and quite often 5 matches. So having the ability to rest those players in the afternoon could be really valuable because of the effect that it has on their performance in the singles.
They've only got 7 players, Zach, inside the top 30 in the world on their team. The U.S., all 12 of their players are inside the top 30 in the world. The depth is clearly on the U.S. side.
Yeah, that depth will be a major factor. I'm interested in seeing maybe how the fanfare might affect things with the average attendance increase up to 45,000. You look at someone like Rory McIlroy, though, for Team Europe, 3-6-0 in his last 2 Ryder Cups. What is his role for Team Europe here?
Well, I think that Rory McIlroy in this case is the emotional leader of this team. You've heard that term used a lot with Justin Thomas in the lead up to this. Well, that is clearly Rory McIlroy for this side. You look at who Rory played with in the practice rounds today. Sepp Straka, a young player, maybe trying to get him a little experience. You have Shane Lowry, Tommy Fleetwood. Perhaps you have an Irish contingent in this Ryder Cup. Like last year, it was in the last Ryder Cup, rather, it was the Spanish contingent of Rahm and Garcia. Perhaps Rory and Lowry is that team that the Europeans lean on this year.
You know, it's interesting because when I look at Rory McIlroy, what I think to myself is this is a guy that was 2 years ago on the green crying, saying how much this event means to him and all that. You talk about the emotional leadership of Rory McIlroy. That is true. But also, too, he's a physical leader and he's a presence. He's the guy that has to go out there and he has to take care of his points. And he hasn't done that recently. And it's been the in my opinion, one of the reasons why the European team hasn't had great success on the U.S. side. I think Rory, particularly now, he has to go out there, number 2 in the world. He has to go and assert his authority here. He has to get this team behind him, but he also has to step behind it with his ability with his golf clubs. And I think as Rory goes, so goes this European team.
Greg, you look at the European team, you see a guy like Viktor Hovland, you figure coming in pretty hot, confidence probably sky high after winning the FedEx Cup title. Do you think he'll be able to keep up that streak of play here for the Ryder Cup?
I do. Look, the last 2 events of the playoffs were kind of a hot streak on a different level. But you look at what Viktor Hovland has done. This didn't really come out of nowhere. He is as complete. And Michael, as you and I have talked about, maybe the best player in the game, maybe the most reliable player in all of the game, including Rory McIlroy and Scottie Scheffler, because he's made so many improvements with the short game, because he is maybe the best driver of the golf ball in the world. I also think we haven't really talked about this, but he is extremely comfortable being aggressive at flags, which in this format goes a long way.
I think a lot of things have changed for Viktor Hovland with his game. I think one of them is his maturity level. You know, you speak about the flag approach and how he has learned to stay away from certain shots and attack certain shots, know when he's playing well. We remember all those great shots that he hit in the playoffs with the BMW Championship as well as the Tour Championship. This is a guy who, to me, I kind of look at him and I go, you know, the one area that is an area that you can almost play around is the short game, right? The putter of Scotty Scheffler is in question. He's got a new coach. The putting of Rory McIlroy has not been great this year. And Jon Rahm has been streaky with it. But this guy has been reliable from the tee to the green. And now that he has that asset of the short game with the maturity level, to your point, I do think that he may be the very best player in the world right now. And I certainly think he's got the most confidence.
It's certainly, I think, like an interesting situation. You have these established veterans, but also we'll have quite a few new faces making their first appearance at the Ryder Cup Team Europe, with 3 rookies handpicked by Luke Donald. Zach Johnson, of course, picking Sam Burns. When you look at these captains' picks who are rookies, Michael, how do you think they'll be able to prove that their spot on the roster was deserved?
Well, you know, it's interesting because when you start to think about these rookies, and particularly on the U.S. side, they've got 4 rookies, but 3 of them played their way on here. The one didn't, and that's Burns. But you look at this guy. This is a guy who has 5 PGA Tour wins. He's 27 years of age, which means he's older than Scotty Scheffler, who's the #1 player in the world. And when you think about the skill set that Burns has, he's won the match play. This is a guy who, by the way, in winning the match play, he took down some pretty talented players, including his teammate, Patrick Cantlay. But I think that Burns is a fabulous putter. He's an individual who's got all the skill sets required. And even though in this year he did win, it wasn't his best year. You go back 2 years ago, this guy won 3 times on the PGA Tour. So he's not really a rookie, even though it's his first time playing in the Ryder Cup. And also, too, by the way, he has a President's Cup, and he played 5 matches in the President's Cup, one of only 3 players to do so. So, Greg, I look at, on the U.S. side, the rookie contingent that they have, not necessarily a rookie contingent.
No, and especially when you look at who his partnership and potential partnership is going to be with, all eyes point to Scotty Scheffler, the #1 player in the world. Scotty Scheffler in the lead up when he was selected had a really significant backing on him. So that goes a long way for Sam Burns. Also notice that Brooks Koepka, I mean, these 2 are sharing the same haircut. And I think there's a possibility if it's not Scotty, maybe it's Sam Burns, and Team Mullet can have a real impact in this Ryder Cup.
Team Mullet is not a reference that I thought that I'd be hearing right here during that segment, but that's fine, and we'll allow it. Of course, we have to get to picking a winner, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out. It's not lost on me that the 2 of you are wearing red and you're wearing blue. We're all Americans here, so I know that you have Team USA winning it all. I want to know, and I'll start with you, Greg, and what type of fashion do you think Team USA will get the dub?
I think this is going to be a really tight matchup. Again, you look at this European side, and the top players are very strong, and that's going to give the U.S. Some difficulty. It's going to give them some challenge. But ultimately, I do think as this event starts to unfold, when you get into singles and you start looking at the last 4 or 5 players, the advantage of the U.S. team, I think, is going to really pull through. I have this being as close as it can get. 14.5, 13.5 in favor of the U.S.
Yeah, I have something similar to that. I'm going to rewind the videotape to 1993. It was 15-13 for the U.S. in that win. It's going to be that same thing. Where they're going to get it done is the singles. And frankly, it's the depth of that U.S. team. We go back to what we talked about at the very beginning. I think the U.S. is going to be pretty close to Team Europe as they go into the singles, maybe even trailing by 1. But I think they're gonna take the singles 7.5 to 4.5, and I think they're gonna come away with that 2-point win, 15-13.
1993, 30 years ago, a long time ago. I was alive, unlike Jordan Spieth when he mentioned that. But Michael Breed and Greg Ducharme checking in with us, getting us ready for the Ryder Cup with the red and the blue, both picking Team USA to take down Team Europe. When you look for the Ryder Cup and that schedule, everything starts Friday morning out in Rome. We mentioned the switch up. It'll start with foursomes in the morning, finishing with 4-ball in the afternoon. 3 days of action, all leading up and culminating with the singles on Sunday to crown a champion at the Ryder Cup.